Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtavtar Shrimad, His Divine Grace Abhay Charana Ravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki Samaved Gaur Bhaktavrind ki Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hare Krishna. As we were discussing in our last class on Saturday, some devotees were requesting to do some discussion on the application of the philosophy, especially on our practice of bhakti. So I thought it's a good opportunity for us, especially as we are discussing Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. There are so many instances that describes about how one should approach this process of Krishna consciousness, how one should start, how one should sustain it, and how one should achieve perfection in this process of bhakti. Srila Prabhupada explains that this process of bhakti or Krishna consciousness is dormant in the heart of everyone. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai Shravanadi Suddhachite Kharaya Uday. Srila Prabhupada would often give the example of a little child. Like the capacity to walk is there in every little baby. Even before it started to walk, even when it was just crawling, even before that. But then as time comes, when the time is ripe that the baby start to walk, the baby start to slowly take its steps. And then walking becomes a very casual act that way. So Srila Prabhupada says, so similarly, bhakti, when we practice, initially it may be very hard. It is dormant in the heart of everyone. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhya Kabunai. Bhakti is actually dormant in the heart of every living entity. In its conditioned state, in its liberated state also. So, bhakti cannot come from anywhere else. Bhakti is already in the heart. And this has to be brought about by the process of hearing and chanting. And we were discussing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was giving this example of watering the plant. Just like how when you sow a seed, you would make sure that the soil is fertile, you would water the plant. Similarly, this process of bhakti, as it lays dormant in one's heart, it can be brought about simply by hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam how bhakti as such, there is no set way how it would manifest in anyone's heart. And there are many examples Srila Prabhupada actually gives. Prabhupada says, because in the conditioned state, it's very hard for somebody to have this initiative on its own or on one's own. Because there is so much distraction in one's life, it's very hard for somebody to go deep inside. It's very hard for somebody to associate with somebody else who is interested in spirituality and bring about that bhakti, manifest that bhakti. So it is very, very hard. So Srila Prabhupada actually explains, because in Kali Yuga especially, with so many distractions, it's very, very hard for somebody to bring bhakti, to manifest bhakti on his own, on her own. Srila Prabhupada says, associating with great personalities becomes an inevitable act when it comes to one taking up this process of bhakti sincerely. And there are many instances that's actually given even in scriptures or even in modern times. You'll actually hear devotees how they came to Krishna consciousness. If you hear, especially in Back to Godhead magazine, I think in ISKCON Desire Tree also, there are quite a lot of videos, and YouTube also you'll see. And if you see how anyone came to the process of bhakti or how somebody came to Krishna consciousness, one thing that will be amazing is no two stories are same. It will be very, very rare. And everyone think, I'm the only one who is favored here. I'm the only one who has been shown, bestowed this very much favoritism by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was the one who was bestowed with so many fortune, costless fortune. But actually everyone is feeling that way. That's the beauty of Krishna. When Krishna is dancing with all the other gopis, every gopi is thinking that Krishna is with me only. But actually Krishna is with everyone. That is true, but everyone is thinking Krishna is with me only. Now, it's one thing to actually convince everyone that, okay, I'm available for everyone. But it becomes much, much more personal. The relationship becomes much, much more deep when the partner convinces, or when the partner actually ensures that the beloved is actually feeling that the partner is giving himself or herself exclusively for the other person. Bhakti, even though the goal of all bhakti, goal of all devotional service that we actually do is simply to gain the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sole goal, sole aim, or the ultimate aim in the heart of every bhakta is simply to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, bhakti as such, Srila Prabhupada actually explains that there is no one single way how it becomes manifest from a dormant state to a full-fledged, full-blown state. Like in modern stories also, you will hear there was one devotee who was distributing books. He comes across a person who was very envious, but this person had a very unique way, a sadistic way of dealing with book distributors. So he would pretend as if he doesn't know who devotees are. He would just stand in one corner. And as soon as a Sankirtan devotee approaches him, this story happened in 80s. As soon as a Sankirtan devotee would approach him and put the book in his hand, he would wait for the devotee to put the book in his hand. As soon as the book lands in his hand, he would take it, rip it into two, throw it, he would just walk away. And then he'll go stand in another spot, waiting to meet another unsuspecting Sankirtan devotee to put his book on his hand. And this is what he was doing. Again and again and again and again. He got so used to this act, after some time he started to crave for these books. Any book is fine, but that feeling he was actually having to touch the books and ripping that. He was ripping it, even though it's a very, very abominable act. Nevertheless, that contact with the Srila Prabhupada's books started to do something within his heart. And lo behold, one day, he shows up in the temple, joins the temple. The icing on the cake, he later even becomes a sannyasi. So, there is a very characteristic way how bhakti can actually manifest in somebody's heart. There is another instance of a brahmachari who joined in Bhaktivedanta manner. He goes to a pub, and there he meets with one other person who was total stranger. And they both are sharing a cup of beer. And as they were drinking, the guy who was seated there already, he was telling him, when it comes to religion, Hare Krishnas are the tops. That's all he wanted to hear. Immediately he puts the beer can, goes and joins the temple. So even a totally unrelated, impious act can manifest bhakti in one's heart completely. Okay, and then we have the traditional way of manifesting bhakti, which is you go seek the association. Narada Muni is given us a classical example. We were discussing how Narada Muni's pastime, it is there literally in every canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Narada Muni, when he was a Narada boy, Srila Prabhupada writes, he was serving with his mother, Kalavati, all the visiting Bhaktivedantas, devotees of the Supreme Lord, especially during the rainy season. And as he was serving, he started to get attached to them, hearing transcendental sound vibration from them, and with their permission, he would also take their Mahaprasad. And later on, after his mother dies due to snake bite, Narada Muni gives up everything, goes to the forest, sits in meditation. 5-year-old boy sits in meditation, and then simply by meditating, following the instructions of the Bhaktivedantas, he was able to come to the bhava level, so much so that Supreme Lord himself manifested to him, actually. First in his heart and then even orally, Supreme Lord speaks to him, encouraging him, you please continue with this process, and there will come a time when you will actually be able to see me face to face. In fact, you will associate with me eternally. And that's what happens with the Narada Muni. And Narada Muni, later on, you will see, he was endowed with so much Bhakti Shakti, he travels everywhere throughout the universe. Everywhere he goes, and he makes devotees out of anyone and everyone. From snakes to you name it, from hunter, Mrigari, dacoit, Valmiki, Dhruva Maharaj. Actually, each one of those personalities, they were not even seeking bhakti. That's the funny bit here. Very unusual ways how bhakti manifested in everyone's heart, Like Valmiki was saying, I don't even know how to chant because I'm so impure. I can't chant Ram's name. He says, no problem. What comes natural for you? Mara. Mara means killing. He says, just keep chanting Mara, Mara. Very unusual way of him making devotees. King Prachina Barahi, we discussed in Srimad Bhagavatam, how Narada Muni, when he meets Prachina Barahi, he encourages him, but he wants to convey the message, but Narada Muni wasn't convinced that he can handle his hardcore preaching. So he tells an allegorical story, wherein the main character is Puranjana, which is King Prachina Barahi himself. So very unusual ways also, devotees also act, not just bhakti. Okay, so seemingly impious act also can bring about bhakti, and normal traditional way also brings about bhakti in one's heart. And there are instances where bhakti was actually manifested in a very extraordinary circumstances also. You will see, classical example, Bharat Maharaj, if you see. Initially he was a king who ruled for 10 million years. Being loved by all his subjects, had very obedient kids. His wife was very beautiful. He was the unrivaled king of the entire planet. Varsha, actually. That's how big his reign was and how glorious his rule was for so many years. Not one or two, not tens of thousands. 10 million years. That's how long he was ruling. Srimad Bhagavatam explains. And then later on, as the pastime unwinds, you will see him getting attached to a deer. Then in this next birth, due to his attachment, and by that time he was in Bhava platform. Goes to show how much one has to be careful in not letting attachment come between oneself and Krishna. So even somebody in Bhava platform, of course Bharat Maharaj's pastime was staged for a particular reason by Krishna to teach us how careful we should be. Srila Prabhupada says, Prabhupada says, Parishit Maharaj is such a great Vaishnava king. Nevertheless, he was given notice in 7 days about death. Prabhupada used to say, quoting this, that we don't know how long we have before we die. We may have 7 days, we may have 7 minutes, we may have 7 seconds, we may just die. So, point here is we need to understand that bhakti, it comes in very unusual circumstances also. And then the next life, when Bharat Maharaj was born as a deer, he could remember everything. And then he used to always sit there and take association. Even as a deer, he used to take association of all the sages. And then later on, as time rolls by, he gives up his body, but by that time, he remembers, obviously. Throughout his life, as even in the body of a deer, he could remember his previous life as a king. And then he gives up the body of a deer, offering beautiful prayers to the Supreme Lord. And then the next life, you see, he's been born as Jada Bharat. And then the pastime continues like that. You'll see similar pastime in Gajendra, who was King Indradumna in his previous life, being cursed to be born as Gajendra. He then also offers beautiful prayers. So bhakti, it starts in an unusual way, it continues in an unusual way also across lifetimes. And there are instances given where even in somebody who is in a non-human form, in fact in a very maddened state, still they come under the control of bhakti. Rasikananda Thakur, who is a famous, illustrious disciple of Shyamananda Pandit. One day as he goes, he comes across a mad elephant who by then had killed so many people, ransacking the whole place, whole city. So when Rasikananda, when he looks at the elephant, he takes pity on the elephant. And as soon as the elephant sees Rasikananda, his purity was so much that the elephant just fell at his feet. Then Rasikananda Thakur touches him and then he initiates him in chanting the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Even giving him a name, Sri Gopal. That's the name of the elephant. And the elephant was circumambulating him and it would always accompany him in Harinam whenever and wherever Rasikananda Thakur goes. And there are instances, which is like extreme instances, that's given in Narada Purana. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, in one dilapidated temple of Krishna, people were not even going there. Because of this rundown condition, it became a dwelling place of all drunkards. Can you imagine? Deities who were beautifully worshipped, but because of signs of time, it went through ravages of time. It was in a very, very dilapidated condition. Nobody was even going. Wall cracked, place very filthy. So it became the home, dwelling place, resting place of all drunkards. So it so happened one day, two drunkards came there and they were drinking in a totally inebriated, intoxicated state. Both of them, they started verbally quarreling with each other, throwing foul language at each other. And at one point the fight became physical. So both of them picked up a stick each and they started to beat each other. And as they were fighting with that, there was a little rag that was tied to the end of the stick. So they were trying to fight, beat each other, and at that stage they bet each other and they died. Now, because the simple act of them waving the stick with the rag tied at one end, Krishna took it that, oh, they are waving flag at me. And they went back to Vaikuntha. Another instance that's given in Narada Purana again is of a little bird. Bird was killed by a hunter. A dog comes there, snatches its prey, which is the body of a dead bird, picks it up. Now, the dog wanted to eat in a peaceful place. And as he was searching, it happened to go around a temple. And guess what happened? Both the bird as well as the dog went back to Godhead. So, bhakti, it starts in a very, very unusual way. It is, as we were discussing, no two stories of two jivas, how they came to Krishna consciousness is same. It's a very, very personalized program that's given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, Srila Prabhupada would often repeat, devotional service is a science. Bhakti Yoga is a science. Science technically means it has to be verifiable, repeatable, observable. How can bhakti, which actually happens in such unusual ways, in so many different ways to different personalities, how can we actually see a pattern across all of them? Very hard. That makes process of bhakti more exciting, more interesting, because we can never come to a point wherein we can conclude that, yes, I have understood bhakti, I know everything about bhakti. It's simply not possible. Why? As much as we say it is a science, as much as we say by definition of bhakti being called as a science, it has to be repeatable, verifiable, observable by everyone, which means what the process which is followed by one devotee over a period of time, whatever results that it actually bears to that particular devotee should be repeatable by any other jiva in this planet, irrespective of whatever body they live in. So they should also be able to follow that, and they should also be able to observe all those symptoms. But then we were also discussing how unusually everyone comes. The reason for that unusual circumstance is because bhakti always remains elusive. You cannot put a set definition to bhakti. Bhakti Devi has her own transcendental mind. And Krishna can just give bhakti to anybody. So, extremely important that we understand that bhakti as such cannot be defined that this is the only way how this is going to work. It never works like that. Which means we can't look at the other devotee and copy. Okay, that devotee is doing it, is working for him. We can take the idea, but it may not work exactly to me, because the level where I am in and where that devotee is in, they may be in two different ends of the spectrum, actually. Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives two verses about the glories of the holy name, but one for somebody who is chanting in a conditioned state and one for somebody who is chanting in a liberated state. Syat Krishna Nama Charitati Sitapya Vidya Pitopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu Kintwardharat Anudinam Kalusaiva Justat Swadvikramat Bhavati Tad Gatamula Hantri. If somebody actually takes the holy name, fame, pastime, characteristics of the Supreme Lord, when they start to recite, it is very, very hard. In fact, it is tasting very bitter. So this is in one end, in the Shraddha stage. But then you go to Prema stage, Tunde Tandavani Ratim Vitanute Tundavali Labdaye. You hear that verse. I do not know how much nectar to these two syllables, Krishna, provide, emanate. When one chant these two syllables, Krishna, one desires millions of tongues. Because why? The holy name of Krishna is not different from Krishna, and Krishna is coming and dancing in one's tongue. If this two syllable Krishna enters into one's ears, one immediately desires millions of years. And when this holy name enters through the ears and touches the heart and dances in the courtyard of the heart, all the senses become inert and one experiences ecstasy. Same medicine, same holy name, but it is bringing completely two different effects. Why? Process is the same. However, the stage where the devotee is in, that dictates what effect the person will be able to experience. So, bhakti, in that sense, it's a science, verifiable, observable, repeatable. Nevertheless, bhakti is also called as achintya. Just like how we say Krishna is adoksaja, Krishna is achintya, we cannot understand Krishna. Similarly, we can't understand bhakti also. So, the only way how we can understand about bhakti is through these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, is through these pages of Chaitanya Charitamrita, is through the pages of Nectar of Devotion, or teachings of Lord Chaitanya, or Krishna book. That's the only way how we can understand a little bit about bhakti. That's the only way how we can understand at least the principles of bhakti. Okay, so this is how it works. Because even in the morning, same beats, everyone sleep for the same duration, especially we're all staying in the temple. Pick up the beat, one devotee may be approaching the holy name, the chanting of 16 rounds very enthusiastically. Another devotee will be maybe just waiting. Okay, as soon as I put my hand, I may get some free time so I can doze off a bit. It's exactly same thing, but because of the level that we are in different stages of bhakti, it seemed to be bringing different effects. But actually, Srila Prabhupada says, again and again, it is a science. Prabhupada would often decline when people say this is religion. Prabhupada says this is not religion. Prabhupada would say, this is not faith. Your faith may be something today and tomorrow it may actually change. Prabhupada say, that's not. Bhakti means worship. Prabhupada says, bhakti means love. Bhakti means, Prabhupada says, one's constitutional position with how one is related to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he explains about bhakti, he says that bhakti means service. There has to be some action. And that's the definition we also see from Srila Rupa Goswami. Even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prahlad Maharaj, he says that the Supreme Lord is actually full in everything. Nobody can provide anything to the Supreme Lord. Nevertheless, because of our fallen condition, we offer something to the Supreme Lord, and simply to give us credit for us, the Supreme Lord accepts it. And to explain that, he gives the example of an analogy. Just like how if you go in front of a mirror, you decorate yourself. With each piece you actually put on your face or on your head or on your body, the bimba, which is the reflection of your own self on the mirror, will also get automatically decorated. So he uses this example to say that whatever we have, the Supreme Lord is Atmaram. There is nothing that we can actually do to please him, to satisfy him, because he is not in need of anything. He has everything. However, simply to show us favor, the Supreme Lord accepts whatever that we give. But the most important ingredient there is bhakti. If we give something to the Supreme Lord in bhakti, then the Supreme Lord accepts it simply to favor us. And we will also be satisfied. Exactly like how the reflection of the real object also gets decorated when you decorate a person in front of a mirror. So here the real person is the Supreme Lord, the reflection is us. Okay, so we don't need to seek pleasure separately. This is Prahlad Maharaj's point. And Srimad Bhagavatam itself actually mentions how when one cultivates bhakti, one will almost always, in fact always, come across challenges, come across obstacles, come across things, disturbances, things which one wouldn't actually want to face. But always you will see in scriptures, and the scriptures actually rip whatever anarthas which one has, how fallen we are, repeatedly will come across. It will bash at sense gratification. It will tell us that we are in a very, very fallen state of mind. We are slaves of mind, so on and so forth. And repeatedly you will see the same mode being demonstrated by great Vaishnavas also. You see, Oh Hey Vaishnava Thakur song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He says, Chaya Bega Domi, please, oh Vaishnava Thakur, please, Chaya Bega Domi. The first 4 verses of Nectar of Instruction, he says, that please help me control my 6 urges, which is the first verse of Nectar of Instruction, Vacha Vegam, Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udar Upasta Vegam. So likewise, he says, please bless me so that I can get rid of all the 6 faults. Chaya Dosha Shodhi. What are the 6 faults? That comes again in that first series of verses. You will see. Atyahara Prayasha, Jana Prajalpa Niyamagraha, Jana Sangasya Laulyamcha, so on and so forth. So this process you will see, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he actually says, despite his elevated state, he still says he has faults. And Srimad Bhagavatam, never you will come across an instance where a devotee would actually be very seated very much comfortable. You take Prahlad Maharaj or you take Dhruva Maharaj, they all go through so much difficulty to see the Supreme Lord, but after seeing the Supreme Lord, they glorify the Supreme Lord, definitely, but in almost immediately or even before that, they would say how fallen they are. It looks very much contradictory, because on one hand, if they think they are so fallen, then they shouldn't have even tried to see the Supreme Lord. It feels like that. Like Haridas Thakur, when he asked for the boon in Mahaprakash Leela, he says, oh my Lord, please bless me so that I'll have the association of your devotees. And then he corrects himself, oh my Lord, sorry, that's so impudent of me. I shouldn't have asked for something so elevated. Please bless me so that I will at least be a dog so that I can eat the remnants. I feel comfortable now. You take Sudama Vipra, we know the pastime of Sudama Vipra. He goes there, sees Krishna, Krishna takes a handful of chipped rice, accepts it, and then he gives it back to Sudama. What does he give back? Nothing, literally, just embraces him. That's all he gives. But by the time Sudama Vipra comes back, there he sees the whole area being transformed completely, so much so that he couldn't even recognize his wife. But then, you fast forward to Sudama Vipra, what did he do? 1 week later, if somebody had gone there, you would expect Sudama Vipra to be this greatest, munificent person who is giving very magnanimously people in charity. No. He has immediately given away within a week's time. He again comes to the same position of being a pauper, stays there. Why? Because there is something which these elevated devotees, they are experiencing in that humble state, in that helpless state, in that hopeless state, which remains elusive for neophyte devotees like us. Because for us, if we are in a position of Sudama Vipra, let's say for example, we would go, we would have been humble, Krishna would have given us wealth. Now what would we do? We would have kept it and engaged it in Krishna service. After all, Yukta Vairagya is very important, right? But no, Sudama Vipra is thinking that I can't handle this wealth. This is going to take me away. Prahlad Maharaj is thinking, oh my Lord, Supreme Lord is there. He has come simply to save me. I am just an Asura. And that too a 5-year-old boy. He feels comfortable there. Comfortable, that doesn't mean he didn't take responsibility. Being humble doesn't mean irresponsible. When Narasimhadev is actually telling him, okay, you rule, he is ruling. Happily he is ruling. Bharat Maharaj, after hearing all these beautiful instructions from Rishabhadev, he is still, Nayam Deha Deha Bhag Cham Nirloke, we were discussing. Human life is not meant for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. One should be doing Tapo Divyam Putrakayana Sadvam Sutyati Asmat Brahma Saukyam Tu Anantam. One should seek ways and means to do penance and austerities to seek this pleasure of Atma. Doesn't Bharat Maharaj know that? Looks like maybe he dozed off in the class. After hearing all of that, 10 million years he is ruling. Not just 1 or 2. You won't find perhaps any other king who have ruled for that long. Actually, maybe Manu rules for that long. But he is ruling for that long. How is that possible? So, on one hand, we see devotees in a very, very elevated state. They are worshipping the Supreme Lord, and Supreme Lord comes. And then immediately, as soon as Supreme Lord comes, they are telling how fallen they are. But on the other hand, you also have devotees like a Bharat Maharaj, who even after hearing so much instructions, knowing very well how much conditioned we are, he still is not giving up. He seemed to be more attached. But actually, Srimad Bhagavatam explains, Prabhupada explains in Srimad Bhagavatam that the only consideration for the devotee is pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Why? Whatever that we actually offer to the Supreme Lord, most important ingredient is bhakti. Krishna says, Patram pushvam phalam toyam, yome bhakta prayachati, tadaham bhakti upahritam, ashnami prayatatmana. Most important ingredient is bhakti. If one offers with love, flower, fruit, water, I accept it. But then immediately after that, Krishna also says, Yat karoshi yad ashnashi, yad juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, do that as an offering. Whatever penance or austerity that you do, whatever charity you give, do that as an offering to me. So, on the first verse, Krishna is saying, you do this, you just offer it with bhakti, I will accept it. In the next verse, Krishna is saying, you just continue to do whatever you do, but somehow connect it with me. There is a gamut of difference between, or a gulf of difference rather, between these two verses. Acharyas explain, when Krishna says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam, you just give me this, but as long as you offer me bhakti, ashnami prayatatmana, I will accept. Krishna is actually assuring when he says Patram pushpam phalam toyam. But later on when Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever austerities you perform, penances, charity you give, do that as an offering to me. Krishna is not assuring to the bhakta there that I am going to actually accept it. In other words, there is a difference between us doing bhakti for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and doing bhakti simply to protect ourselves. Usually, in the beginning stage of our bhakti, which is from Shraddha, why do we come to Krishna consciousness? Chaturvida bhajante mam. We didn't come here to be free of material desires. That's not why we came to bhakti. We didn't come to bhakti to lead a very simple, humble life. That's not why we came to bhakti. We were going through tormentations of materialistic allurements, tormentation of material energy. We didn't know how to deal with it. We wanted to seek some shelter that will relieve us, at least temporarily. And we were trying different ways and means, material means, in order to get rid of all those disturbances. We couldn't accidentally, just like the two drunkards. Somehow, we were connected to bhakti through devotees. So, when we come to bhakti, our sole goal was simply to survive. But this is when we are in the beginning stage. So, which means the scale with which we gauge our progress is, as long as I am happy, I am doing well. I cannot be wrong. So, we still approach bhakti not with ashnami prayatatmana, not in that platform, not in the platform of pleasing Krishna, but somehow connecting it to Krishna so that I can also be counted one among the devotees. That's how we start. Now, as we start that way, unfortunately, we bring along with us the whole baggage of anarthas. We bring along with us all the 6 types of faults, all the 6 types of vega, the forces, all the different types of impurities, which we have been carrying for lifelong. It's mentioned that false ego is the greatest enemy of spiritual sadhaka. Because as long as one holds on to this particular impurity of false ego, no matter how much one tries, it is extremely hard for oneself to extricate from one's mind and go to the soul platform. If you remember, we have these 8 senses, 5 gross senses and 3 subtle. Eyes, ears, nose, all the 5 senses we have, tongue, skin, everything. So different senses we have, these are the gross senses, but then we have subtle senses also, mind, intelligence and ego. And then more subtler than any of these is, or the most subtlest among all of them, is the soul. Now the soul is spiritual, everything else is material. Now this entire range of material, gross and subtle senses, they get glued to the soul through false ego. So it's mentioned false ego is so much us. In materialistic sense, whatever we lived for since we were born is simply to feel good. Feel good means it's false ego. Why do we become an engineer? Or why did we become a doctor? Why did we come to Australia? Or why do we even become monk initially? It's simply, we feel good. That we being in a position wherein one feels good, that is a false ego platform. And if you see materialistic life, every single thing that's actually been done, it's in that platform only. Now, then we come to spiritual life. Now, spiritual life, because we are in a survival mode initially, we still continue to do good, to do what makes us feel good. And we may choose our services based on our choice. We may choose our ashram based on our choice. We may choose a location, choose association, choose a particular speaker to actually hear from, a particular kirtan singer to hear from, choose a particular cook whose prasad alone we actually go for, so on and so forth. They are all great for a start. But these elevated bhaktas that we actually talk about, Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, Gajendra, Bharat Maharaj, they are all not in the survival platform. For them, survival is not even a matter of question anymore. They have already been in the process of bhakti for years, since time immemorial. So that's not what they aspire for. What they aspire for is to be an object of pleasure for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now that is in the other end of the spectrum. And we are still in this side, trying to actually see. Now for us, in order to be able to even relate to them, in order to be able to even relate to what the other devotees they go through, what do they aspire for, we need to first understand that we are different from those elevated devotees. Very important. Because our false ego always says, we are such a great devotee in Krishna consciousness. See, currently there's no hot water in the shower. Wow. You are such a great devotee. You took cold water bath. Mind will say. Okay, so because we are practicing our bhakti on the platform of false ego, even if we read the prayers, you would expect something, even Prahlad Maharaj or Narasimhadev, you would expect Prahlad Maharaj to say something esoteric. But then there won't be much. Same way if you see any of the devotees, Narada Muni singing, Dhruva Maharaj singing, or Akrura singing Krishna, as soon as if you see them seeing Krishna, you would expect them to say something which we haven't heard. But then again they say the same thing, there's Panchabhuta, we have heard that already in Bhagavad Gita. Still it confuses us. Now why we feel this way and why those devotees, they appreciate so much, which most of what we actually take for granted. In order to be able to understand that, the first number one diagnosis or first number one conclusion we should come to is, we are not in their level. We are in a beginning level and those devotees are in advanced level. It's the same Hare Krishna Mahamantra, they also chant. But when they chant with simplicity. Okay, what's the meaning of Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Oh my Lord, oh energy of the Lord, please engage me in your devotional service. Is that what we mean when we pick up the beads and chant? No. When we pick up the beads and chant, we want to finish the 16 rounds. There is no simplicity even in the core of our spiritual activity. There is duplicity even there. What to speak of any other activity? What to speak of dealings which we have with each other? What to speak of deity worship that we actually do? What to speak of any other service that we do? When the fundamental lifeline that is actually holding us in Krishna consciousness, which is japa, we have duplicity even there. We have duplicity with every holy name. That's how much anarthas have ingrained in our attitude. That's how much displeasing our bhakti can potentially be for Krishna actually. Now this analysis we do not to feel dejected, not to lose our confidence, not to experience inferiority complex. That's not the reason why we actually go through this. Scriptures, the beauty with scriptures is, scriptures would do open heart surgery. Clearly it will tell us what is true, what is not. And when you actually read that, it will tell you clearly, this world, if you are here, you are a very fallen soul. You will always have trouble. Many times I had trouble understanding that point. No, I didn't have problem with my mind. But then when Prahlad Maharaj says, I'm always tormented by my mind, then you think, if Prahlad Maharaj says, got to be true. When Bhaktivinoda Thakur who epitomized humility, if he says, I feel so proud, you feel like, definitely we do feel, So when we read all the different acharyas' poem or their writings or their prayers, when we actually hear, that makes us recognize that we have a lot to work on. That's a good starting point. But then the beauty of scriptures, as I said, was it won't just stop with that. First it will expose our true self. First it will tell us who we are. It will tell us how fallen we are. It will tell us how hopeless we are. It will tell us how duplicitous we are. If we accept that, yes, at least in theory, it may be true. At least if we accept that, then it then starts to give solution. Otherwise, we can keep reciting the verses about a problem. We can keep reciting the verses about solution also. But it won't become part of our system. We won't accept it. Because we think, even now if we ask, why did Krishna preach the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna? Arjuna was confused. As if we are in elevated state. We are also confused. But many times when we read, we think Arjuna was there. Very analytically we'll study. We'll study the flow also. But when it comes to putting ourselves in Arjuna's position, we think, actually some areas I understand, I can relate to Arjuna, but other areas looks like we are more elevated than Arjuna. That's what mind will say. Introducing false ego. So literally every anartha that we come across in the scriptures as that tells us that we possess them, all of them, rather, they stem from false ego. That's the first enemy. So, we'll discuss more about that. There are so many different analyses that's given in scriptures. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself actually gives, Bhaktivinoda Thakur gives, Narottam Das Thakur gives, Bhagavatam, prayers, so many different prayers actually discuss about that. Uddhava Gita goes in very elaborate detail about that. We'll continue our discussion next week. Just a quick announcement about when we are opening the temple. So the temple will be opened we are reopening the temple rather on 13th of June, which is a Saturday. So the initial arrangement will be, we'll be opening the temple only on weekends. So starting from the 13th of June, that weekend, every weekend we'll be opening. Temple will be opened for 5 hours on both Saturday as well as Sunday. That's the second point. Third point is booking is mandatory because according to the government regulation, whoever visits the public place of worship, we need to have their details just in case for some, if there is some outbreak of cases of COVID-19 anywhere, they still want to track it, so capturing that information is mandatory. So keeping all these regulations of government in mind, as well as taking into consideration our restrictions, or rather space constraints that we have in our temple, we have decided that we'll be opening the temple in 2 shifts, total about 5 to 5.5 hours, both Saturday for 5.5 hours as well as Sunday. As devotees actually come into the temple from the entry point, which is the Miller Street entry, as a person actually comes in, maximum a person can actually stay here within the premises is 15 minutes, including the time inside the temple. So inside the temple room, it may be 2-3 minutes, depending on how much crowd that's there at any point of time. So I just want devotees to be aware of that because we are in a very extraordinary circumstance. So we need to go through some austerities, but it's all for collective good. We need to take up this responsibility also. It's also a great way for us to bring about some or better ourselves in our discipline, in especially during festival days. So we'll be sharing the communication about who to contact, how to book for your slot, so on and so forth this weekend, latest by Saturday or Sunday. The darshan will start from the following weekend, which is 13th of February. Unfortunately, Snana Yatra comes this weekend. Temple is not open for darshan during that time. So 15 minutes is the maximum time we have put aside given the number of devotees we have in our community. So 15 minutes is like the total time one can spend within the premises. That's how we have routed. So it will be you enter through, we'll be sharing the plan. When you see that, you will see it clear. You'll enter through the front door and then you will leave through the restaurant door. There'll be markings on the floor. You have to stay there. Even as you move, you have to move from one decal to the other and you stay within the mark. And when you come into the temple room, we have to please cooperate with the volunteers. I'm very grateful for couple of dozen volunteers who have put their hand up to join us. If any of you like to be part of a volunteer team, you are welcome to contact us. And we started from the 13th of June, only on the weekends, and maximum time everyone can spend in the temple premises, not just the temple room. Temple premises will be 15 minutes. And please wait for our further communication this weekend, and then you can start calling the number to do your booking. When you do the booking, the devotee who is registering your details would ask for basic details regarding your address, number, how many devotees are coming, so on and so forth. So please keep all those information handy. And we'll also be testing for the temperature. All these are part of standard regulation we have to do. So if somebody is having symptoms of a high fever, if the temperature is too high, they may be declined entry. So please be prepared for that. So if you are unsick or have symptoms of sickness, or rather unwell, if you're unwell or having symptoms of sickness, please stay home, get well, and then you can come. So initially we'll open the temple only for the weekends, starting from 13th of June. And then after a few weekends, we'll then, depending on how we progress, we'll consider opening it on few days, and then slowly we'll take it. We are hoping that by August, which is for this year, because of Purushottam Mass, we are having a lot of festivals that fall in August itself. We hope with this format, we would actually train ourselves individually as well as a community, so that we can still come and participate in at least having darshan of their lordships on all the festivals. So we have Jholanayatra, Balaram Jayanti, Janmashtami, Radhashtami, Prabhupada Vyasa Puja, everything in one single month squeezed. So it's extremely important that we do take up our own individual responsibility, because a couple of things to consider. One is we have to be very, very sensitive to our neighbors nearby. We have very good relationship, especially over the past 2 years. We really have been working very closely with our neighbors here. We don't want to do anything that would strain our relationship in the long term. So please keep that in mind. That's one thing. Second is our relationship with the council as well. So it's everyone's individual responsibility to make sure that we as a community, we actually go from strength to strength. Yes, it is a trying circumstance, but we can still get through this one together. So requesting all the devotees for your full cooperation, and we'll be sharing all the information by this weekend through Facebook, website, WhatsApp, everywhere. Okay, we'll finish here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath Bhagwan ki jai, Samaveda Gaur Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Devotees in Mayapur TV, YouTube and Facebook ki jai.